Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Senior News Editor of Retail Insider. Joining me today is Dan Kelly, President of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Thanks, Dan, for joining us today.
Good to be with you, Mario.
Well, January 18th is not far off, and for many small businesses in Canada, it's not going to be a very good day. So tell us, Dan, what's happening on the 18th with the Canada Emergency Business Account loans?
Yeah, January 18th is the day by which the loan is expected to be repaid if you want to have a chance of getting that forgivable chunk taken off of your loan balance. And this is affecting hundreds of thousands of small businesses. 900,000 small firms took out a CEBA loan, and all of them have only until January 18th in order to repay that CEBA loan. For most of them, that means that they have to come up with $40,000 in order to get to keep the $20,000 forgivable. Many businesses have already done that, and more are looking to borrow the money. Unfortunately, our data shows that there's about 22% of businesses that just don't have the money to repay their CEBA loan, and for them, they're going to see their debt rise on January 19th.
Yeah.
It will now be $60,000 in total debt rather than 40,000. That's a bitter pill to swallow.
And let's face it, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this. And we've talked about this in the past, is how much debt these businesses have incurred because of the pandemic as well. What's the average?
Yeah, so even now, 3 years out, the average small business is carrying $100,000 in post-COVID debt that they took on not for good things like a new piece of equipment or an
Yeah, yeah.
expansion of some kind, but debt just to keep the lights on during the pandemic. And it's the weight of that debt that we worry may pull many of these businesses under. That's the big concern right now. How many of these businesses, when they see their debt level go up, are going to unfortunately make the decision to pull the plug? Businesses can't outrun this debt forever. Yes, many of them, even with an extension in the loan deadline, won't make it. But there are some viable businesses out there that are just struggling to get this debt behind them. And if it were for that,
Yeah.
they would live to fight another day.
Yeah. So what are the consequences for those businesses that okay they're not going to shut their doors, but they're going to
Yeah.
continue, yet they haven't paid that loan back?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of businesses on January 19th. If you haven't repaid your CEBA loan, your debt now is $60,000. That's how much you owe to it becomes a term loan. The government, to its credit, did extend the deadline to repay the whole thing. So you will have 3 additional years to pay that 60 grand back. You'll have all of 2024, 25, and 26 to do that. In fact, the government has made it a little bit easier. You're only expected to pay interest on that debt for those 3 years. So you only have to pay the 5% interest, which is way better than you're going to be able to get on your own. A 5% interest rate. You can pay interest only up until the very end, and then in a lump sum, pay that 60 grand off at the end of 2026. But that's still a tall order for many businesses if they're not raking it in. Where are they going to come up with that 60 grand over the next 3 years? That's the question that many of these businesses have on their mind. So we suspect that while some of those provisions are helpful, it is delaying, sadly, a process that will take some of these businesses out, and that just shouldn't happen.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Dan, yourselves and other groups out there like Restaurants Canada, I did a story with them that they're talking the same lingo as you guys are.
Yeah.
You know, there doesn't appear to be a last minute chance that the government is going to change things and extend the deadline, right?
No, I had over the holidays, I had several calls with senior political leaders urging them to extend that deadline. And at that stage, I tweeted out over the holidays, I think New Year's Day, that in my judgment, there is not going to be an 11th hour reprieve here, that the deadline will pass. Now, the government has put in place a few changes they made just before the holidays. One of them is that for those 50,000 businesses that are ineligible, They will have their loan is already due. They don't get till January 18th. They've already passed the December 31st deadline, but the loan will be flip it over to the Canada Revenue Agency, and CRA will negotiate a repayment plan over a 2-year period for these businesses at a 5% interest rate. So has been a bit of relief offered to that group. And then for as the majority of loan holders, about 850,000 of them, if you haven't repaid your CEBA loan by the 18th, you will be given that 3 years at the 5% interest on an interest-only scenario available. The one thing I should mention, for businesses, even at this last minute, if they want to borrow money to repay their CEBA loan in order to get that forgivable portion, they only have until January 18th to do so. In some instances, they should talk to their bank. They should need to get something in writing. It may not even need to be the full loan application. In some cases, it could be as simple as just an email to your banker saying, I want a replacement loan, a
Uh,
term loan to pay my CEBA loan. If they can get that done by the 18th of January, they will be given till March 28th to put the loan in place or find alternative financing. They'll still be able to get that up to 20 grand forgivable portion. So it's important to take action right now if business owners are looking for more time to arrange a loan to repay the CEBA.
okay, and let's not forget it amidst all this, right, in this environment, we've got so many challenges that small businesses continue to face. New payroll taxes, CPP and EI, carbon tax, obviously, the costs of, everything from electricity to lease rates, whatever, right? How do businesses survive in this environment?
It is super hard. Look, there are businesses that have pivoted hard in order to try to get back some of the customers they may have lost during the pandemic. But with, government is unfortunately not making this easier and
No.
is making it harder for businesses to get ahead. The Canada Pension Plan premium increase, EI premium increase, carbon tax increase, and the liquor tax increase. Those are 4 tax increases over 3 months,
Mm.
or 3 to 4 months that are going into effect in Canada. That's going to take more dollars out of businesses, leaving them fewer to invest in their business to get back on a pathway to recovery. This is the shame of it. Government should be making
Yeah.
their job easier, not more difficult. We're going after the carbon tax in a big way right now. One of the big files for us of the carbon tax is the government is sitting on $2.5 billion that it committed to return to small businesses that has already been collected,
Yeah.
and they haven't done it yet. So that money could be very useful to business owners to provide some relief. We're pushing them hard on that as we go forward towards the spring budget.
Yeah. So, when you look at the overall picture and the number of, and I know talking to the guys at Restaurants Canada, they're talking about thousands of businesses on the brink, right? Because of all this stuff.
Yeah,
What are the consequences of this
yeah.
for the overall economy in Canada?
I really worry about what's coming up in the months ahead. Not only do we have, of course, the ongoing effects of high inflation, some hope that it's going to start to ameliorate in the next little while, but it
Yeah.
hasn't happened yet. Um, but we've already got consumers with fewer dollars to spend. We've already got businesses that are deeply in debt and facing higher taxes, higher costs on every line of their budget. Um, and as we look forward to businesses that are now receiving the message that their debt has gone up rather than gone down,
Yeah.
I worry about how many of them are going to basically say, I can't do this anymore. If some of those prognoses are correct, if let's say there are anywhere close to the a quarter of a million businesses that tell us that they are at risk of failure,
Mm.
if even a small percentage of that actually happens, the economic consequences are huge. The effects on employment, on government tax revenue, on communities will be massive. And and it doesn't have to be this way. Government, of course, could make the lives of businesses a lot easier by pushing off some of these tax hikes, reducing a few of the key charges that they face, and of course, extending these loans. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a willingness so far to do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Dan, for joining us today.
Anytime.
All right, that was Dan Kelly, president of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, senior news editor at Retail Insider. Thanks for joining us today.